Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Mim Jouar, and today is Friday, April 4th, 2025. And I've got the lovely Michael Josh from GadgetMatch here with me. Hi, MJ. How are you?
Hey Miriam, it's good to see a familiar face.
Yes.
Working from the studio sometimes, just working alone, it's a very solitary existence. And I mean, I'm not complaining. I haven't traveled for a month now,
Oh,
so
nice.
I've been enjoying being home. But then it's also nice to kind of see a familiar face as well.
You know, I've also not been traveling since March 14th, I think, and I'm traveling again April 12th. So it's nice to be home for a little bit, right?
People look at our social media and they think about how fabulous our lives are, but when you live your and we live a very
It's
privileged life.
fantastic.
It's good flights, great hotels, new places, new cities, lots of good friends. But sometimes all you want or all you crave for is just that alone time at home to kind of like just nest a little bit. So it's been a nice restorative, albeit busy season still. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember the pandemic, like because we did a lot of video calls back then, and
Yeah.
being able to just chat one on one is such a privilege.
Yeah. And I think, you and I see each other at events. So it's like, it's hard for my friends sometimes to understand. I don't necessarily need the social stimulation when I'm home because I get a lot of that being out
Yeah.
and about covering stuff. So, it's a balance and it's hard. So there you go, folks. You get a little bit of an inside view of what it's like to be an influencer, a creator, a journalist in technology. MJ, I have had an iPhone 16e for a month now, roughly. I mean, a bit less because I got it late because I was traveling and it arrived in Vancouver, which is good because I got the one with the SIM tray because of that. And as you can see here, so I want to review it. Like I've talked about it on the show. We covered the launch and I didn't have the phone then. And then about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I talked about my tests. I went to Seattle with 3 SIMs from 3 carriers and went all over the city and did some speed tests and like did the nerdy, modem testing thing.
As you would do.
Passed with flying colors, right?
Okay.
So that was great. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but what I really want to do today is talk about the rest of it because, design and cameras and some of the, not compromise, but some of the things they took away. I loved your video, by the way, and I will put it in the show notes where you mentioned, it's the iPhone E for everyone. That was so good. Essential was another word you used, and I think this is definitely a great way to describe it. So what is your take in general on the design? I'll just hold it up here.
We had the iPhone SE for a long time, right? And us tech pundits were all like just calling this, in anticipation of its announcement as the successor to the iPhone SE. The problem with the iPhone SE for me was that it always kind of rehashed old hardware. I mean, on the outside, at least, an old build. So it was like, okay, I'm going to get a cheaper iPhone, but it has the body of an older phone. This one, what I really love about it is that it feels like it's a part of the iPhone 16 family. And so I like that they call it the 16e. I'm really curious if we're going to get an iPhone 17e. Is this going to be a yearly update now alongside the rest of the iPhone lineup? But it looks just like an iPhone.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things I love about. I think the design is fabulous. I think it's the best design of any iPhone today. I don't like the camera pod on the Pros for the last little while. They're just not. It's not that I'm like worried about the holes. Some people have that phobia, which is totally legit. But it's more for me. It's just a design thing. It's just a little too ornamented. This is so simple. Like look at it. It's like you get nothing. And to me, if the Pro had the 3 cameras flush like that, not flush because it sticks out, but had nothing around them, there wasn't actually a square and have the 3 cameras and a triangle, I think it would look really great. I love also how it's really perfectly rectangular, right? Like there's no slight rounded edges like on the 16. And also glass and aluminum. I mean, it's beautiful and it's absolutely an iPhone And now we get USB-C, which is great. So all of that, I'm totally on board. Design is mwah, to me. It's one of the
And
nicest.
design is so underrated sometimes. As tech reviewers, we kind of zoom in on all the tech specs and all the features. But like sometimes I think I know a lot of people who don't feel like they need to spend north of $1,000 on a smartphone. So they're just interest, but they want an iPhone. And so
Right.
for me, it's important for people like them to be able to go into a store and say, I feel like I'm buying the current generation iPhone. And that's why for me, it's important that it looks and feels just like the rest of the family, which this one does.
Yeah, and I think they nailed it in that sense. Of course, there's no dynamic island here. There is the notch, which is totally okay. This is actually, I think this is important to mention. This is kind of recycling a lot of parts. This is an
Mhm.
iPhone 14 display. Apparently, according to people who have already repaired these, it's identical. You can swap an iPhone 14 display. So it makes sense, right? And that's why you have that notch. But honestly, I don't think that's a big deal. I even think that the bezels are, while a little wider than on a Pro, are
Yeah.
very even, very beautiful, very well done. Again, this is Apple at its best. And it makes me very happy to feel and hold this device and see this device.
It feels so good. I love the matte finish too.
Yeah.
Super.
Okay. Matte, not just in one, like sometimes you get matte on the sides, but not the back, whatever. I'd like that. You're right. It's matte all the way around. My only gripe with design, perhaps, is that we didn't get actual colors. Now, you have colored cases, which are really great.
I do. They were very strategic. It was just black and white. And then if you want to add a pop of color, just buy one of the colored cases. I actually have two, Miriam. Don't hate me. I think I have
You have like a
pink
fuchsia
one.
or
I think I
purple
have
or
a fuchsia
pink,
as
right?
one.
I
Yeah.
remember from your video. Yeah.
But like, obviously, I love blue, so I'm rocking the blue one.
So pretty.
I don't know. I think, yes, colors would always be great. Sometimes I feel like a lot of people, they put a case on their phones anyway.
Yeah.
And so that's another, I'm using this new art case, not sponsored, but like for my 16 Pro Max. And I think when I unboxed it, it was like, see your phone was the tagline. And I think because, we will go over every new phone release and like lengthy commentary on the finish, the colors,
Yeah.
but then we all slap a case on them. So
I know.
like,
Even I do. Yeah. I've been using this iPhone with this case, the white
It's
one.
so-
It's kind of boring, but
because
You
it
know.
is light, I feel like I'm not as scared to use it without a case.
yes, I agree. But I did want it pristine for the photos and the videos and stuff, so I've been kind of
Yeah.
protecting it. I still have a few little things to shoot. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. Like I think the colors, the only thing I'm bringing it up is because, we're going to talk about the price. And I think, I think it's $100 too much. I've said that already many times. But I also understand that it's something I want to make it very clear that Apple has this very, logical approach, right? It's like $599 and then $200 price gap to $799 for the 16, and then $200 price gap to $999 for the 16 Pro. It's beautiful. And then if you look at the design, one camera, two cameras, three cameras.
Three cameras.
Amazing. The problem is that even though Apple users, iPhone users are going to stay with the iPhone. There's no doubt. They have kind of like, they don't want an Android phone. There's no competition, right? But we don't live in a vacuum. And in the non-vacuum we live in, you can buy a Pixel 9a for $499 that comes in multiple colors. Now, is it as pretty? Not even close.
No.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
I think that they lost the visor and that was a bad thing. But there's colors. It's also metal and glass. And it has, a price point that I think works. I know it's hard, but for me, it's not so much that it's too expensive because I could afford it, but it's more that it doesn't synchronize in my brain properly. Like $499, I think I'd be like perfect. I can live without the ultra wide. I can live without the MagSafe magnets, even though that I think is very odd. But I cannot feel that. I feel like $100 too much. You get flagship chip, but you also get a quote unquote flagship chip on the Pixel, right? Like it's their flagship chip.
Their flagship.
So, of course, I'm comparing things that most iPhone users will never compare.
Yeah.
But
And
my
that's the
audience
thing.
will, right? And I have to
Yes.
acknowledge that, as a Mac user who uses Android, which is a bit a weird combo. I love
Yeah.
Apple's ecosystem for many things, and I
Mhm.
have an iPhone for video, but I'm not like just using this phone a lot more than I've used an iPhone in recent months because my personal iPhone 16 Pro I just use for video. I never actually read my emails on, but I wanted to use this. I wanted to really
Yeah.
use it. So I have been. And oh, it's rough. It's rough. I'm having a very hard time adjusting, and it's always been like that for me with iPhones. So,
It's
I think that's a matter of preference.
The thing is, I think an iPhone user is comparing the price of the 16e against the iPhone 16.
100%.
And that's it. I mean, there's a lot to be said
Maybe
about
the
the
15,
Pixel as
right?
well.
And
Maybe the
and you can buy
15.
a refurb 15 Pro for I'll be $25 more right now. So
Yes, and I do have friends who also go the refurb market. The only thing that I will say, I had a friend. I mentioned him in my review, but I had a friend who, he's one of those people who doesn't like to buy new. He'll buy refurb, and he'll buy it usually a year or two after the release. And so he was asking, so knowing that, asking for advice, and he was like, "What should I pick up?" And I'm like, "Well, we're currently in this point where there's Apple Intelligence, and there are only certain amount of phones that support it. And I know like there's this whole debate about like should you buy a phone for now, but then if you're that kind of person, you're also going to hold on to your phone for 3 to 5 years. So for me,
100%.
my thing is like, you shouldn't buy anything older than this because you want to be able to partake in whatever Apple Intelligence is going to be like in the next few years. So I was like, either wait it out, but then now there's an iPhone 16e that has a chip that supports Apple Intelligence. So that's
Exactly.
at least
I
for
think it's
this
interesting
generation of
because
phones is important to point out. Yeah.
absolutely. I think it's interesting because they still sell the 15 and the 15 is $100 more and the
Mhm.
15. So I think here's the thing. If you're an iPhone user and like me, you don't care about Apple Intelligence because it's not fully there yet. Now,
Mhm.
of course, you eventually will want it, but say you're like me again, you change your phones at least every 2 or 3 years. I would say a 15 is a pretty reasonable proposition because you do get a bunch of really good things. You get, a better camera system. You get an ultra wide, right? You get the MagSafe magnets. You don't get
Mhm.
Apple Intelligence, so that's something to keep in mind.
Mhm.
Do you get an action button on the 15? Or was that only on the 15 Pro? It
No,
was 15 Pro. So you
15
don't get
Pro.
the action button either. So that's a good and a bad thing depending who you talk to, right? Like I kind of like the mute switch, but I do understand what they're trying to do with the action button, and the 16e has it, so you can put like the what's it called, the vision stuff to
Yeah. You
Apple
can
Intelligence.
It's
What's it called?
only actually on this phone that you could do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. The shortcut that you can put in the control panel is only on that
because
phone. I try to
because
add it
you
to my
use camera control
I
on
know.
your other iPhones.
But I
Yes.
thought that maybe Apple would let you add it to a Pro, but no, they're like, you've got the camera control, you got to use
Yeah.
that. It's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Sorry, you don't have that other button, so it has
But
to
yeah,
be
I
on
think
camera
so. The
control.
15, I think, is really a matter of do you want more the camera stuff? Is that more important to you? Or
Yes.
is Apple Intelligence more important to you? But here's the thing that breaks everything. What breaks everything is that, and I don't think it's from Apple, but you can find refurb 15 Pros base storage for 620, 625. And at that point, you're looking at only $25 more than the 16e, and you get Apple Intelligence support. You
Yeah.
get way better cameras. You get MagSafe,
Yeah.
and you get the action button. And so then I'm like, and you get also the pill, right?
Right.
Um, the
Dynamic
dynamic
Island,
island. So
which I
I'm like,
love.
that's tough. Also,
But
it's really
then if you're
tough.
buying from these sources, you're paying out of pocket already and you're not
Right.
getting something
Yeah, so that's true.
subsidized.
There's a whole thing. If you're I'm looking at my audience here who tend to buy their phones new. But you're right. If you're just an average consumer and
Mhm.
you're coming from an iPhone 12, right? Or whatever, and you're like, or maybe even better one would be like a 10R, XR, like single camera in the back, right? LCD
Mhm.
display, much older chipset, everything. Like you're coming from that, absolutely the 16e will be amazing. In fact, I want to talk about performance and software and the
Okay.
experience because other than Dynamic Island, when you hold this phone, when you use this phone, when you're jumping around between apps, holy crap, it's good. Like, I'm used to the best Android flagships, and right now the only ones that are really, really screaming are like the OnePlus 13, like something like that, right? In the US.
Okay.
Like I feel the Galaxies are not super fast to me. They don't feel like the fastest phones, but I feel like OnePlus definitely nails it. Pixel, not even close. Like my Pixel feels more sluggish than this iPhone 16e, and I have a Pixel 9 Pro XL. So what? Amazing, right? Is that your thought
the
too?
Android world? The Android world is such an interesting. That's a podcast for conversation for a whole other episode. The fragmentation, how you used to buy Pixel phones because of the Pixel exclusive features, but I think
And I love
Android
that. I still
and
love
Google,
that.
but also like Google knowing that they don't control the hardware. Like if they want to kind of do what Apple does, right? They need the partner that is probably the most successful in the Android world. So you're seeing a lot of features debut on a Samsung phone first, and then roll out to everybody else later. In terms of speed, well, right now I'm really loving my Oppo Find N5, which is my
Well,
Android daily driver, but that's
yeah,
another
I have
conversation
that
as
too
well.
here. I have it in the case, but yeah, there it is. Yeah, no, but I mean, like that's like the OnePlus 13, right? Like it's like really some of the best performance you can get on an Android, right?
Yeah.
That's why I was saying
Yeah.
like it's interesting because this is a 699
Yes.
iPhone, like,
Yes.
and it performs better than a 699
Yes.
Android, most
and
699
and it's
Android
because
phones.
you're using A18. Like it's the same chip as the most expensive iPhone 16 Pro Max.
Absolutely. It's to be fair though, it only has 4 GPU cores instead of 5, and apparently I'm not a gamer, so haven't really tested that yet. But apparently, yes, the performance is noticeably a little slower. But come on, like iPhones are already amazing at gaming, so I really don't think you're gonna notice, especially if you're coming from like an A15 Bionic or something like what was in the SE before, right? So I think it's interesting because performance is objectively great on iPhones always. But the nice thing here is, as you pointed out, 16e, 16 Pro, you're not going to feel almost any difference in performance.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to them for that. I think that is also another thing. And then, I didn't talk much about the performance of the modem because I did an episode where I talked about this. Very good, very impressive. Battery life is amazing on this phone. Better than my 16 Pro for sure.
And a lot of people are coming from older phones or maybe the minis as well. And they're really going to feel that battery. I was going to say, like, I when I reviewed it, I was just using it all day and still having some juice left, which is rare for an
This is
iPhone.
like a 2-day iPhone for me, and I've never had a 2-day iPhone. Never.
Yeah.
Even my
And
15
that's why
Pro
I'm really curious.
Max wasn't a 2-day iPhone.
Neither is mine. And I mean, the reason why I use a 16 Pro Max is because I just need this year, I thought to myself, maybe this is the year where I can switch down to an iPhone 16 Pro.
I did.
Because the cameras are the same, and there's and I use it and I was just getting battery anxiety. I was like, okay, only because of our jobs, like we're on our phones, we're posting on social, so yeah. But by noon, I'm already like, okay, I think I need to plug in, which is not the case with the 16 Pro Max. But I will say the iPhone 16e has incredible battery
Amazing.
life. I actually do have some questions about. I know you talked about it in our previous podcast. I was thinking about it today, and what tickles the tech boy in me is what this could mean for the future, right? Like, where else are we going to see this modem? Does it also mean that maybe one day we will also see that modem, now that Apple is making their own cellular chips on, say, a MacBook Air, which would be...
I tell you this, I have patiently waited until 2020 to get an ARM-based Mac, and I have now... I'm on my 3rd generation of ARM MacBook Air. I'm pretty much a light and thin person, so the Air does all it needs to do for me. I don't need to go Pro. But if I had to ask Apple to make a laptop for me, I would want them to use the chassis of the 12-inch MacBook. The one that was super light, super thin, only had one USB-C port that came out in 2015.
Long ago? 2015.
Yeah, the Retina MacBook that was super thin and light with a single USB. I want that size and shape with an M4 chip and an M1 cellular modem.
You know what you're describing?
Sorry, C1 cellular modem. But I also want I want more than one USB port, so maybe one on each side.
You were describing what did they use, a netbook, a Mac netbook.
Yeah, but I want the performance of a MacBook Air on it, like you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting because I feel like now that I'm kind of satisfied, I should not really have to like ask for something special from Apple. But if you're listening, Apple, and I think I'm not the only one, you know, I think Snazzy over at Snazzy Labs, you know, he's Quinn has the same request. He wants it so bad, and I want it so bad as well. Let's talk quickly about the camera on this phone, and then speaking of thin and light, let's talk about the ASUS Zenbook A14, which I am madly in love with. So, cameras, of course, no ultra wide. To me, it's a tough one to swallow, but I understand it. Within the Apple universe, it works, right?
It's frustrating in the context of going on a photo walk, because you want the flexibility of the ultra wide or being able to zoom in. But you know, if you saw in my video, I was in Singapore on another trip, and you know, just doing touristy things with my mom and dad. I was still able to produce a lot of great photos from the trip.
They look great.
I didn't feel like I felt like I wish I had a better camera on me. And that speaks volumes about the quality of the camera. I don't think everybody needs 3 cameras.
No.
Would I want 3 cameras? Of course I would. But here's another argument. I was talking to my friend Gareth. You met him, and he does a lot of photo stuff too. And we were both reviewing the same phone, and he's based in London, and it was overcast and cloudy, and he was just grumpy about the quality of the photos. Whereas I was somewhere else where it was nice and vibrant, and the skies were blue, and I had completely different feelings too. So sometimes, granted, a lot of my photos are great because Singapore is also very photogenic, and I lucked out with, you know, so like, there's a lot of factors that go into a good photo. That's what I'm going to say. But in terms of hardware, with what it has,
it's pretty damn great.
It's pretty damn great. Yeah.
Here's my take. You know, I'm a big camera person. I did a lot of comparisons and tests. My take is this. It is inferior to the 16 and 16 Pro, yes. But only really when you push it, like low light, because it doesn't have in-body stabilization. It doesn't have the, you know, the sensor shift. It has just OIS. And of course, the sensor is smaller. So by the way, again, parts sharing. This is the same sensor, not lens, but sensor that's in the ultra wide on the 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max. Exactly the same.
Well, so, this is how they kind of manage costs, right?
Exactly. Economies of scale. Perfect. I'm totally on board with that. And OIS for sensor shift for price, that makes perfect sense. Here's what's interesting, though. I think that it performs probably close to, if not better, than the 14 base model did.
Okay.
But it gives you an idea how in just 2 generations, we can scale the sensor down, remove the fancy stabilization, and still get the same level of result. That is astounding to me. Yeah. And that's kind of why I have kind of had these mixed feelings using this phone, because yes, every now and then I'm like, come on, ultra wide, it's table stakes. But then I'm like, wow, look at this camera. It's actually
This is why
really
you want the
well.
newer chip too. You know, like when you're shopping for a camera, you're not just shopping for the sensor, the camera, but then you're also shopping for what the image engine on the new chip provides. And, you know, that's a lot of heavy lifting on a lot of phones these days is done with software and machine learning and all of these, you know,
100%
algorithms.
And so, you know, overall, I think it's fine. You know, the 2x zoom works really well. I think up to about 4x, 5x, you're okay for social media use. You know, obviously it falls apart beyond that. And that's totally fine. No phone that has a single main sensor today will do more than 5x properly. So it's no
and
big
just
deal.
Very quickly, I mean, I noticed, like, I think portrait mode was very different. The way
that's another drawback. You need a person in the shot. You know,
and then like it would not do objects, even
you
an
need
object
2
that
cameras
looked like
for
a
that.
person. Yes.
Good news though, front camera, even though it's a notch, is the same as 16 and 16 Pro. Autofocus on that,
Oh,
by the way.
nice.
That's a huge deal. You don't get autofocus on a lot of Android selfie cameras. So
Yeah.
again, I think that the selfies I've taken with this phone are very nice, very nice.
It'll
And
make a
you know,
lot of I know a lot of people who it would this phone would make very happy.
100%. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my takeaway. So one last thing I want to mention is I don't understand it, and I think we all don't understand it, and I think we all know there's a simple solution to this problem, but I still think Apple should have done it, is the MagSafe magnets. Like I understand that because it's 7.5 watt, they couldn't
Yeah.
it's slower charging, so they're like, well, we can't really make it MagSafe because MagSafe would be 15
Yes.
watt. I
Yes.
get that, but the magnets are such a game changer, and right now even their case doesn't have it. And I think that, third party cases are going to have it. Great. And that's going to solve the problem. But wouldn't it be nice if Apple made a MagSafe magnet case for their non magnet iPhone 16e? That's all.
Yes. I don't know if I said this in my review, but I'm just shaking my
You
head
mentioned it.
vigorously because I did. Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, everybody does it. Like everybody who wants to have MagSafe on Android is building phone cases with magnets built in. And you do this on all your other silicone cases for the rest of the iPhone 16 lineup. So why couldn't you just make a silicone case with those little rings to just and then help me align the magnets and just give me wireless charging like that way? I mean, give me the
That
proper
would
alignment
be
that way.
that would be I heart you, Apple. So, if you're
Yeah,
listening,
maybe
folks
for
out
next
there in
time.
Cupertino, please consider it. Consider it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So look, overall, I think great phone, especially if you're an iPhone user and you're not a tech person and you just need an iPhone, you need to upgrade. Awesome. If you're more selective like we are and you're budget sensitive, consider the 15 Pro refurb right now. Really great deal. And then, if Apple can, maybe it's going to be hard with those tariffs and the economy right now, but $499, I would not have, I could walk away from my MagSafe complaints and my ultra wide complaints, which are the
yeah,
only two things I'm really complaining about on this phone, to be honest with you, frankly.
yeah.
But yeah, that would cinch the deal for me. Like if you can get it down to, maybe on sale from time to time with a special offer,
Yeah.
oh my God, then I would be like,
But
go get
see,
this phone.
that hardly ever happens with an iPhone.
Of
Like,
course.
I was doing my Pixel A review or like hands-on and just looking at the prices and I was like, okay, you just launched a new phone and then I can go on Best Buy and buy the Pixel 9 for like just a little bit more.
And Motorola, I think, is the worst for that. But,
Yeah.
everything goes on sale after like a month later, and it
Yeah.
stays on sale forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's speak about the ASUS Zenbook A14. This is a 2-pound, 1 kilogram laptop. It is made of aluminum. It is super light and super thin and super gorgeous and super OLED. Will it start up or did it go to sleep? I think it might have gone to sleep. But I love this thing. I'm not a PC user, as you know, but I do love me a Windows machine from time to time. And this thing, there it is. It's waking up now. You have yours. Is yours the same as mine? Yeah, there you go. Look at
I
that.
believe we have the same exact color
So
as
this
well.
is max brightness. I'm facing the sun right now. There's a curtain between me and the sun. So this isn't too bad. OLED, 32 gigs of RAM for this one, 1 terabyte of storage, but it only has a Snapdragon X, not even the X Plus. But for what I do on it, just write and do the web, it's perfect. This thing is so light, so beautiful. The screen, everything about it is amazing. Price, I'm a luxury laptop person. Like I think any laptop below $1,000, I'm kind of like, I squint and I go like, not for me. I'm a bit of a luxury laptop lover. I like my laptops to be metal and solid and thin and light and fancy, but not spec fancy necessarily.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like they made this for me. ASUS, thank you.
They've really been ASUS has really been thinking about design a little bit more. We've spent so much time in Taiwan, and I know ASUS to be an engineering first company. There are a lot of just tech nerds who run this company, a lot of engineers. But I think now there's really been a major shift internally where they're like, no, design also needs to dictate a lot of the decisions that we're making. And in fact, this weekend I'm heading to Milan to attend Milan Design Week, where
Awesome.
ASUS is actually hosting their own event where they're talking about design. They did it last year as well at London Design Week, and they're talking about Ceraluminum and all of
Mm.
the, a lot of the inspiration between the design of the laptop and the materials that they use. It's. I think for me, it like you. When you are more thoughtful, and I think that's why I love Apple as a brand, when I can see thoughtful choices that go beyond just spec, is really when you can connect with me as a consumer.
Yeah, what I love about this thing is, besides being light, is that it has a USB-A port
Mm-hmm.
and an HDMI port and two
And two
USB-Cs
C ports, yeah.
and then a headphone jack. And this is a roughly $1,000 laptop. I think the one I have is 1,200, which is a little high because it's 1 TB, 32 GB, even though it's only a Snapdragon X, which is a bit of a weird combo, but OLED as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's supposedly going to be like an $899 or $999 version of this laptop at some point. Now, with again tariffs, economy, big question mark right now. But I'm just saying that it's not like a $2,000 laptop. So you're
Yes.
if you're looking for something that doesn't flex, is light, is thin,
Yeah.
has a great keyboard, has a great trackpad, a great display. Like that sensory experience matters to you as much as,
Yeah.
like processing stuff. Like, I think if you're not playing games on this, you're not probably editing video on this. It would have to at least have an X Elite for that. And I think there might be an X Elite version. I think it's here in Canada, actually. There's an X Elite version.
The
And
SKUs,
if
the
you're
thing
in
with
Canada-
ASUS is there's so many different SKUs depending on where
but
you live.
Also, if you're
Yeah.
in Canada, you don't get the tariffs. So maybe trip to Canada, folks. Anyway, but the point I'm making is that they kind of nailed this for a light and thin, for the kind of like, this is essentially their idea of like competing with MacBook Air. Now,
Yes.
performance-wise, it's not there,
Yes.
with that model that I have, the X. But
Yes.
I love the ARM base. The Windows on ARM is my thing. And again, as much as I waited for Apple to make an ARM-based Mac, the fact that we now have choices of Windows on ARM machines, a whole bunch of them, from Lenovo,
And-
another brand I love as well. It's like,
I love,
so
for
good.
me, it's the battery life.
Yes,
That's
30
what
hours
Qualcomm
on
is
this.
doing with its Snapdragon chip on Windows computers. For me, the reason why I would pick a Snapdragon powered over, say, an Intel is if I'm a road warrior and I just need really long battery life in form factor like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
30 hours on this. And now,
Yeah.
Granted that's, their spec, but I've literally like used the thing for days just to write on and off, like when I don't want to be in front of my big computer. And I don't think I've charged it in like a week. Like, it's just like, it's insane. And so, between the design, the fact that every part is solid, like display, like specs could be a little better, but there's different SKUs. So, don't let that stop you.
I know we're
Price
showing
is
off like gray ones.
There is that cream colored brown
there's that
one.
cream color one,
beige
and I'm
one.
allowed to say that there are going to be a couple, maybe more special edition colors that are launching in Milan on Monday. So by the time you're listening to this podcast, maybe one more day, and you can find out what all those new colors are.
Exclusive.
And they're gonna. I saw the pictures. I'm not allowed to talk about them yet, but they're pretty. They're pretty. But the name of their event is called Design You Can Feel, and I think if you touch it, like it does. Ceraluminum is like their ceramization of aluminum. I prefer Ceraluminum on their higher end Zenbooks. The Zenbook, S14. I love the S14.
I have
this
it too,
one doesn't feel the same way because they add magnesium to make it,
of course, for the lighter.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about it, and this is why I love Ceraluminum, whether it's magnesium or not, or the real deal, is no fingerprints almost. I mean, it's just your laptop doesn't look like crap. My MacBook Air looks like crap all the time because of that.
What color is your MacBook
And so,
Air?
That's nice. I only have good things to say about this, other than, don't buy this if you're a spec monster, obviously. I mean, most people who are spec monsters are not going to buy an ARM-based, Windows PC yet. It's coming. I think eventually Gen 2, I think, of the X Elite series will be pretty solid. But I feel like if you're just like, you want super quality in your hands,
Yeah.
but you are just doing like what you would do on a Chromebook, or
Yeah.
like even maybe
I wouldn't even say
light
Chromebook.
photo
Definitely,
editing,
you could do all of that. Yeah, it
light
still
photo
has AI
editing, you know.
features
Oh
built in
yeah, it
as
does have
well.
AI, right?
Yeah.
It does support, it's a Copilot Plus, so it does support
Yes.
that stuff.
So it's not. I wouldn't call it a Chromebook.
No,
For
no,
me,
but there
like
are some
people.
high-end Chromebooks. I'm thinking high-end
True.
Chromebooks, right?
Fair.
Yeah.
For me, it's when you are always on the road, you care about not having to make your bag any more heavy than it needs to be,
Yeah.
being able to fit in smaller backpacks, not having to charge it, maybe leaving the charger at home, and still being powerful enough to do everyday work stuff. This is a great. Plus, it looks good when you take it out at the lounge at the airport. That's kind of how I would like describe this laptop to a
100%.
layman.
So, that really caught my eye when they announced it at CES. And when I got to play with it, I told our PR rep, and I said, "Oh, please, can I have one? Please, please." And they made it happen. So I'm very happy. Let's talk about the Switch 2, because you were
Yes.
there. Like I was at lots of you. Oh my God, I had so much FOMO yesterday or whenever it was. Like you guys are all at the event taking photos, and I know everyone.
Not
and I'm
just
like,
taking photos. Like I literally was.
You
It
played
was, I
with
think,
it?
3 hours. I think I had 3 hours. Or
Wow.
yesterday was probably one of the funnest work days I've had in a long time, because I mean, we do get sent all of these devices to review early, but then being able to play with the Switch and see it and play with it, and then just being able to play all the new games. I just had such a great time yesterday. So I'm happy to talk about the Switch 2.
Tell us everything, because I'm so excited. I think the Switch first gen was one of the biggest breakthroughs in mobile gaming, of this, at least of this millennium so far, in my opinion. There was PlayStation Portable. I think, that was a big step forward. And then, of course, the iPhone and the Android universe of gaming. But honestly, there's nothing like a dedicated device that's so democratic and so affordable and so for everyone, because there's a lot of, the Valve ones and the Android ones
and the ROG
Steam Decks
Allies of the world.
And the Intel and AMD based ones. All that stuff is out there for playing games that are PC games in portable. But I feel like this is a whole different thing, right?
The Switch has always been a very, is it safe to call them an outlier? Because, when you think about gaming, you think about high res graphics. I was writing my video, which hopefully is already published by now, but like yesterday, and I was like, I had to kind of like double check the specs to find out if to realize that the Switch OLED was running a 720p display all this time. And the thing is, Switch gamers don't really. I wouldn't say we don't care, but we really, it hasn't really affected the experience. And I remember running through Zelda Tears of the Kingdom last year and being reminded of the importance of storytelling and how good game writing and how good narrative. I mean, because I was like, oh my God, imagine if how this would look in 4K ray tracing. The world that I get to explore that I love so much would even be better. But still, it didn't take away from how much I enjoy playing the game and how much hours I log playing it. So the Switch is kind of unique in that way. Now, in a world where you have these bigger Steam Deck kind of devices, I feel like the new Switch 2 kind of goes head to head with them in some ways in terms of size. It does have a larger display than I believe the latest Steam Deck, but it's thinner. It's still as thin as my Switch OLED, which is great, but everything just feels bigger. And
so higher resolution, and it's
higher
LCD
resolution
on this first version, right? So
that's the one big I think complaint a lot of users had when the announcement was made, because is it going to feel like a downgrade going from a Switch OLED back to an LCD display?
Right.
But then you get a higher resolution screen, you get HDR, and for me, it's and 120 hertz refresh rate.
Oh, okay. Wow, I didn't know that.
So
what I caught so far, and I tried not to read as much because I kind of wanted you to tell us, right? So I was
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
we're going to get it all from MJ. But like I noticed that the controllers are magnetic now, which is
Yeah.
probably way easier to set up and use.
Yeah.
Less prone to breaking too. I heard that there's a USB port on the top as
On
well
the
at the
top.
bottom. So now
Yes.
the apparently is in a camera accessory, so you can like live chat
Yes.
with your friends, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
perfect Nintendo storm of awesomeness, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who doesn't want to do that right now, right? Even if it's just voice
It's
chat.
like, I mean, you can do that now on like Discord, but like this is
Yeah,
built into the
but this
OS,
is built in,
like you can,
right? And it's
yes.
seamless, right? You don't have to set anything up. You can just use your Nintendo account and off you go.
Yeah.
What else did I read? Oh, the dock is lets you incline the device. I don't know if
Well, there's
that's a
always
new
been a
thing.
stand. There's
Oh,
always
okay.
been like a kickstand, but it's just a different design.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily better. For me, what I really loved is you play a Switch. Do you play with a
I have
Switch?
just briefly. I've never
Um,
actually owned one, so
Even this OLED, which I feel like is like the second gen Switch, the controllers, because of the way the mechanism, it slides in and out, um, it still never really kind of locks in place. So it's kind of wobbly.
right.
So much so where
They
you
fix
feel like,
that?
am I gonna break it apart? Like, is it like a little bit too much aggression and I'm like snapping my controllers off? The magnets, you'd think that magnets are weak, but the mechanism is just like you press a button and it goes, you just pull it off and then and it just snaps on. It's so satisfying and it feels so
Yeah.
much secure. It doesn't wiggle,
Nice.
which I think is a great quality of life improvement. But what I like about the port up top too, apart from the camera accessory, is when you're using it on tabletop mode and it's resting on a table, the charging port's covered, right?
Right,
So
right.
now
So
you
now
can
you don't
charge up
have that.
top.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I got to play a lot of games. They're launching with Mario Kart World, and I'm a big Mario Kart fan,
Of
so
course.
super thrilled. Which is it's the only way I can describe it is like it's chaos, it's madness, because you have 24 players now. So
Oh,
literally,
Jesus.
you can be number one, and like there's with all of the bombs and all of the objects that are like being thrown and hurled, it's just madness. You could go to 24th position. At the
Wow.
snap of a finger, which makes it really competitive. And it's like Forza Horizon in a way now too, because there's an open world mode where you can kind of explore, and I think they're like side quests that you can do as you explore the world, so that you can kind of go off the beaten path, drive off the race
Oh
track,
my
and
God,
like
that's fantastic. Like
there's
that's what we've always
NPCs.
wanted, right? Like
Yes,
I
yes.
know.
So I'm super excited. There was this there's a knockout mode where it's just it instead of like starting a new race, the race just continues. So you're driving through the world. So like you finish one course, and as you cross the finish line, it's the starting of another world. It's a start line of another world. So you're never at a point where you're all lined up and waiting to start. It's always a rolling start.
Right.
And then so like and then you it's fun because you have to like, okay, if you want, you have to make the cut. So next first you have to be on the top 20, and then the top 16, and then the top 8, and then
Got
the
it.
top 4, and then your game's over if you don't make the cut. Which was super
Wow.
fun.
Great.
And then they also following coming soon is another game called Donkey Kong Bonanza,
Oh my
which is
God.
like the first Donkey Kong game in
And
like
forever.
forever, which is great.
Amazing.
And a lot of people are asking me, I think the texts that I got yesterday were, can I play my old Switch
Yes.
games on the new Switch? And the good news is, yes, you can't play the new games on the old
Of
Switch,
course.
but you can play all your new old games on the new Switch. And certain games are going to get what they call upgrade packs,
Oh,
where you either will get them free, some of them are paid, but then so if you already own, say, Zelda Tears of the
yeah.
Kingdom, that I think that's a free update if you're a member of the Switch Online service, and then you get the HDR support. So now you get the remastered version with better
Ooh.
graphics,
Wow.
HDR, and by the way, the dock now can output 4K on a
Okay.
TV.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes,
So
yes,
look, this sounds fantastic. I
yeah,
mean, I am excited about this. I think that, even though I'm not like a Switch gamer myself, like everybody who has a Switch is delighted by using it. And
yes.
I'm always delighted when new products come out that delight my friends. It's like
You know what you would be delighted by? I can send it to you. Nintendo doesn't talk about it a lot. They were just like new custom NVIDIA processor. But
right.
then if you go to NVIDIA's website, they actually have a blog post that goes into more detail about the processor, which I feel like you would appreciate. Like their tensor cores, so that support ray tracing,
Okay.
AI upscaling. You can use a web camera, any web camera, USB camera, or you can use
Okay.
their own.
Oh,
But then
wow.
there are games that part of what the processor also does is that it can real time cut you out, and then either put you behind whatever you're casting,
Right. Yeah.
or there are certain games where it'll cut you out. And like there was one game on Mario Party where we were all juggling Goombas, like four of us, and it can detect four people and cut them out at the same time. And then so you're all there, and then there's like a cutout on the screen where you're all just juggling Goombas, and it's like so the processor is doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, you'd
Yeah.
expect that. The Switch is getting
Yes.
pretty old and so much has happened, technology.
Yeah.
And, of course, Nintendo doesn't want to talk too much about that because they want to be transparent to their users. And I get it. As tech
Yeah.
nerds, I'll look into it. But I think, right now, I feel like, that's even my audience doesn't care so much about that. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
what is the experience going to be like in terms of playing? That's what, Switch is.
One more
always
thing I
been about.
forgot to mention is that when you pull out your controller, it's now if you put it on a table like that, it becomes a mouse.
Oh, yeah.
Click,
Right.
right click,
I
left
read
click.
that too.
So
That's
I was
very
playing
cool.
Civ 7, and I'm like, okay, this is a better game played on a
With a
PC.
mouse,
So
yeah.
it's interesting because that's not how you think to play
Right.
a Switch game.
Yeah.
But then now, okay, you could connect it to a TV and then have a flat surface where you're also
Very cool.
using it as a mouse. I did read today that pre-orders are delayed.
Yes, I saw that as well because of the tariffs.
tariffs.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the economy is on fire.
Yeah. The launch isn't delayed, but the pre-orders might be delayed, is what I hear.
Again, our regime said that nothing bad would happen to the economy, but here we are. So hopefully you all get your Switches soon at a reasonable price.
I know.
Let's rapid fire through some news. We have a lot, but
Okay.
honestly, we have about 15 minutes. So it should be pretty easy to go through this. A lot of it is more like leaks and rumors and things that I just kind of want to your take on them. I'm going to bundle some of them together.
Yeah.
The first one I have is that the Galaxy S25 Edge is rumored to launch on May 13th. There was a bit of a delay there, apparently. So, I'm excited about this phone because I think that having thin phones is going to be a thing. I'm particularly excited about the iPhone Air or whatever it's going to be called.
Yeah.
So,
Is this going to be a pricey
right?
phone or a cheaper phone?
I think it's going to be pricey.
So you pay for the
thinness.
For the thinness.
Yes,
Okay.
but hopefully they don't kill the battery life because as I've said on the podcast a few times now, Samsung has a lot of trauma around battery, right? Around the Note 7 stuff. And so I'm worried that they're not going to put a silicon carbon battery in this, which they need to do because if you're going to spend a lot of money on a super thin phone, you want
Hopefully
to have
I
good
know
battery.
that I've heard that they've been looking into it.
I'm
but
sure.
Whether it makes it to this iteration or the S26 is still a big
We'll
question
find
mark
out.
for me. Yeah.
But stay tuned for potentially maybe May 13th. The next one on Samsung is that the Z Flip 7 and the Z Flip FE renders have leaked. And they show the Z Flip 7 having a full screen cover display, like basically the Motorola Razr. And then the FE having the older, Z Flip 5, Z Flip 6.
So basically what
display.
Moto's doing with their how they're differentiating
that
their
makes
products.
perfect sense, and I'm actually very excited to see an FE. How do you feel about seeing an FE flip? I think democratizing flips is a good thing.
Yes, we do need good, affordable flips.
So
I mean,
there you go.
Razr does that, but yeah.
Again, this is not confirmed. This is a leak, but keep an eye on this, folks.
What I would much rather have is the fold. What do they call the fold? That special edition fold that's actually has a
SE.
Is it SE?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would much rather have. But I really love my
Yeah, my Oppo. We reviewed the Oppo Find N5 last week on the show. Mwah. Wonderful machine.
Yes.
Next up, we have some Moto stuff. Moto Razr 60 Ultra promo materials have all leaked. So we have pictures and basically, some idea of what the potentially the Razr Plus in the US might look like.
Yeah.
What's interesting here is that it's got an 8 Elite, supposedly.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of cool. It's the first time we've seen a flagship Razr, essentially, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, in the US.
yeah, right.
In the US.
And also,
Yes.
I don't know if you noticed, but there's an extra button on one side
Huh.
from some of those photos and renders. So I'm not sure what that means. Like, does that mean that there's a camera button? Does that mean it has an AI button?
Yeah.
We'll find out
One of
soon
the
enough.
two. Yeah. Sounds like an AI button.
Yeah, I think that's where everybody's going. So, also the materials. Is that wood in one of those photos?
It looks like wood, doesn't it?
Jeez.
It
I
looks
love
like
it.
wood. I am all about new
Oh my
materials on
God.
phones.
I look at this Razr and I look at, the leaked Z Flip, and I'm like, I'm team Razr. This thing looks so sexy, especially in wood. Like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
See, when you're chasing, you have less to lose. When you're at the top of the game, you only need to make micro adjustments.
Yeah.
And that's what it's those risks that really make covering tech exciting.
100%.
Yeah.
Next up, we have a whole bunch of formerly BBK Group devices here, all lumped together. We've got some Oppo Find X8 Ultra and X8S series. There's an X8S and an X8S Plus coming.
So many models.
Yeah. So
well, I'm heading to China, so for something.
I am getting one of those devices apparently in the mail. But apparently we have official video teaser and an official bunch of renders of these phones. So what do you make of all this so far?
It doesn't look spectacular.
No.
But it does look like the rest of the family.
I do not hate this design.
I don't make any mistakes here. I mean, this is the Find X8. And then this is the X8 Pro.
Oh, yeah. The ones you're handing? Yes. I'm talking. Yes. I was just
so it looks like
yeah,
them.
so it has a black circle.
It looks like this one more a little bit.
So by the way, from the leaks and rumors, we've covered these before. The X8S Plus is a carbon copy of the X8 Non-Pro, but with a black circle instead.
So like this one.
Yeah, chassis-wise, it's identical, but with a black circle. And of course, supposedly has a Dimensity 9400 Plus. So whenever that's going to drop, because I don't know, that's not official yet. So, so that's kind of, and then the X8S is a mini, so it's like a 6.3-inch display.
Can I just very quickly jump in and say,
yes,
this whole Qualcomm versus MediaTek kind of chip race now,
it's kind of exciting.
It's very exciting, and I gotta say, the Vivo, even with the Xiaomi Ultra. What number are we at now? 15 Ultra. I went on a photo walk in Barcelona taking photos, and I still prefer the Vivo X200 Pro as it stands today. Running a Dimensity 9400 is still my favorite camera phone of the year. Which for me, if we're going to have a Find X8 Ultra, I'm so curious how much better of a camera it's going to be.
Yeah, that's rumored to have an 8 Elite. So it'll be interesting because the X8 Pro, which is my current favorite camera phone, because I didn't get the X200 Pro, is a Dimensity 9400, and it's incredible. I took it to India when we went for the MediaTek trip.
You need to get the Vivo. I need to hook you up with some Vivo folks.
I've asked them, and they only want to send me the V series, and I'm like, okay. All right. I'll take the V series. I think the V series are very interesting.
Yeah, but you need the X200 Pro.
I know. Well, maybe you can put in a good word for me. Also, so there's a bunch of mini phones coming, right? And this is interesting because it's all from former BBK people. So it's like the X8S is going to be a 6.3-inch screen. And then there's also this OnePlus 13T. They're kind of rebirthing the T brand for essentially a mini flagship, like better than the T's used to be, because the R's now have replaced the T's.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? Yeah, I think it does. But anyway, the point is, there are rumors about this phone. There's been a lot of rumors. I think it's going to be China only. But the 13T specs have leaked now, and it's exactly what we thought. It's 8 Elite. It's small, 6.3-inch display. It's got a massive battery, 6,000 something milliamp hour on a tiny phone. So, it's got two 50 megapixel. One is a telephoto, one is a main, and then apparently an 8 megapixel ultra wide.
So a T would be better than the R.
Correct.
OnePlus 13 T, OnePlus 13
it will have
R,
wireless
and then
charging. It will have wired fast, all of that. But it doesn't. The only thing it compromises on the ultra wide, kind of like the Oppo Find N5.
Here's my problem with we talked about Apple and how perfect the delineation between products. As a reviewer, I don't know.
It's very delightful.
Whose job it is to help people find the right gadget. It's doesn't always make sense the way they segment their products.
Yeah. I agree. Well, let's see what happens, because I think this is China only. Speaking of BBK formerly, Vivo X200, as you mentioned, there's an Ultra coming. We know this, it's, obviously. But we now have official camera samples, portrait mode camera samples that look amazing. And we have an official teaser of a camera button similar to what we have on the Oppo Find X8 Pro and on the iPhones.
Yeah.
So
like this little
what do you think of all that? Have you ever played with the 100 Ultra?
I haven't. I don't think I have the 100 Ultra, but if considering how highly I speak of the X200 Pro, and portraits in particular, I love portraits on the X200 Pro. Yep. So much so that I took the phone with me when I went to spend time with my family last Christmas, and everybody wanted their photos taken on the X200 Pro. So for me, how much more Pro can you get?
Well, you can get to Ultra. Come on. You got to go with the flow here. You got to go Ultra.
Miriam, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What would you want in an Ultra camera phone?
So I would love an 1-inch sensor with variable aperture to complement the incredible telephoto they have. That's all I need.
Okay. But that's going to be a larger camera bump. And do you care about the larger camera bump?
I don't care.
Okay.
It's an Ultra phone. Go nuts. Go nuts. I want it to be Ultra in every way. I want like 7,000 milliamp hour battery, 120 watt charging, 80 watt wireless, the fastest processor you can put in there. But it also needs to be a little not too chunky, right? Camera pod can be chunky, but I think the phone itself, what I liked about the Find X8 Pro was that it was thinner than its predecessor.
Yes, and the curved edges.
And it's so beautiful. And again, in the same way as we talked about ASUS, and I love that the design, it needs to be coherent and cohesive and thoughtful. I want that. I don't want the Ultras to be just like, let's cram everything but the kitchen sink and not care about design, which, I don't want to accuse Samsung of doing, because I do think the S25 Ultra looks really nice. Mm-hmm. But I think that they are always still prioritizing the specs over the design a little too much, and maybe Apple too, because honestly, that 16 Pro design is getting old. I'm really looking forward to that new design we're seeing leaks of, right?
Yes, I would love a new design on an iPhone. I will say, if anybody from Vivo or Oppo are listening, and there are rumors about these Ultra phones being China-only releases. And for me, I understand the politics of it. I understand the business decisions. But the reason why you, meaning you, Vivo, and Oppo, build an Ultra phone is to have a case study, have a showcase of what you're capable of, to show the world that, hey, Apple is doing this, Samsung can only do this, this is what we can do. So, go all out, but then make it available internationally, even in limited quantities, just so that, the rest of the world can see what you have to offer.
Sell it in Hong Kong. That's it. That's all.
With a global ROM.
just across, just Shenzhen to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Trinity Electronics will carry it and we can just buy
it. Or do pop-ups. Yeah. God bless Trinity Electronics.
I know.
Or do pop-ups. Do a London pop-up. Do a New York pop-up.
Exactly.
And let fans buy your phones. I don't know. I probably am oversimplifying it.
No, but you know what? I think there is a marketing idea here. I think this would make sense, to kind of promote the Halo product, right?
Yes, that's the reason why you build an Ultra phone. It's the Halo effect.
It's a Halo product.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of not Halo products, but a brand that I love that makes incredible devices no matter what the price point, Nothing's got a CMF Phone 2 coming, and they've teased it. And we love the CMF phone one last year. I mean, for the price, speaking of pricing and Android, oh my God. Even if this thing is more expensive though, it has 3 cameras. Supposedly it has a telephoto now. Oh, now I don't expect it to be magically great, but I do appreciate the effort of pushing the envelope in this very, very affordable budget price point. Right?
It's very clear that nothing has its sights set on India. I mean, the fact that
Oh yeah.
ASUS is basically now president of India, and the CMF phone is such a novel
It's so good.
concept, right?
It's
And
so good. I could
people,
live with CMF phone if it had NFC for payments. That's the only thing I missed on that phone. And if they add that, I'm like 100% declaring that the phone to get if you are a nerd like me and a
yeah,
budget lover and you
yeah.
want to buy a phone that just does it all properly.
Tell you, as long as you price it well and people don't feel like they're getting, a mediocre mid-range phone, they're gonna love the device. And giving them the options to be able to swap out components, little parts, and just like customize. I love the idea. It's such a great idea. I love Nothing as a brand. Like
Me too. They're
again, because of
nailing
their
it.
design ethos.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
good. Again, design matters, guys. What if I told you that
Okay.
you could take a Dimensity 9400, play it around a little bit, and like adjust a few things, and turn it into a Chromebook chip?
I mean, I'd buy it. It's a pretty powerful chip as it is.
That's probably more power than most Chromebooks need right there.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening with MediaTek. They launched a Companion Ultra chip. Companion has been their line of chips dedicated to Chromebooks. And, a lot of people think Chromebook, they think plastic $200, just Chrome OS, you just the web. But a lot of us that started with the Chromebook Pixel and the Pixel Book even before that have this thing where we want like a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro or Zenbook A14 grade Chromebook. And we want slightly better specs because we want to open 50 tabs in Chrome. And for that, there is a new chip from MediaTek called the Companion Ultra. And I'm actually really excited to take a high-end Chromebook with that chip for a spin once they become available because I love Chromebooks.
Which manufacturer would you like to make it?
Oh, probably, I hate to say this, but my faves out there have always been ASUS and Lenovo. Like, now Acer makes some good stuff too. There's HP, there's Dell. But I have to say, I have a soft spot for those two. So for me, it would be one of those,
Okay.
maybe
Good
this
answers,
Chromebook using the chassis of the A14. Like imagine an A14 Chromebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's very interesting because, when initially we got briefed on this, I thought it was a brand new chip, but then we looked at the specs and I'm like, this is like a Dimensity 9400 revisited, redux.
Yeah.
And it's kind of very clever. Because they do use the Dimensity chips for the Android tablets, but apparently there's some things they need to do to make it, like it boots completely differently and it requires special hardware to boot completely differently. So they repackaged it basically, which I think is really cool.
You know what I'm excited that MediaTek is doing is all the AI stuff that they're doing on mid-range chips is what I see the future is going to be.
The crazy
Talk about
NPU,
democratization and empowering. Yeah.
So, there's Chromebook Pluses coming soon that will have Gemini local capability. And so I think that chip will probably help a lot. But speaking of chips, we're not done yet. We have one more thing to talk about, and that's the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8S Gen 4. And that one is apparently right now a China-only chip. And I haven't checked, and I'm sorry, folks, I should have because it's my job, but I'm surprised they haven't announced the chip, but they haven't announced the phone yet, or maybe they did and I missed it, because typically that's what happened. And Xiaomi is always the first, right? So maybe there is a Poco or a Redmi or a Xiaomi phone that I missed that's coming out with this.
There was a Poco launch in Singapore that I missed.
That doesn't have that chip in it.
Okay.
We covered the Poco F7 series last week. I have the Pro here. They didn't send me the Ultra, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens because remember last year we had an 8S Gen 3, which was a Gen 3, but downgraded a little bit. And this is exactly the same. This is a Gen 3 downgraded a little bit. And it's not an Elite. It doesn't have the Orion core. So that's the critical thing here.
So supposedly it's expected to debut on an iQOO phone
Ooh.
Z10 Turbo later this month.
Okay, well, there you go.
But
That makes perfect sense.
but who knows?
Who knows?
Maybe
Who's counting?
Xiaomi or Oppo might just beat them to the punch.
Perfect. I think it's interesting because I think that there is a need, and especially in India and China and certain markets, to have a flagship-ish tier of chip, right? Like
Yes.
the one that's just below, like the one that's in the 13R
Yes.
right now is an 8
Yes.
Gen 3. It's last
Yes.
year's. That's kind of what the role of that chip
It's so
is.
important. I mean,
Super important.
It's you live in a world where like in markets like India where every spec matters, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I think to myself as a reviewer, do people really need the top of the line Qualcomm or MediaTek chip?
No.
Most people who are looking to save some money will benefit from just getting a chip like the 8S Gen 4.
And it makes financial sense for Qualcomm too, because you're essentially recycling technology that's already been paid for. The R&D is done, right? Like the 8 Gen 3 is being available and out. Now you just tweak it a little bit, add some modernity to it here and there, and then you rebrand it and off you go. And I think that is perfect because, that also means more revenue for you, but also more choice for the OEMs. And
it's so interesting these days. Speaking of OEMs and choice, it's so interesting how these days, like almost every OEM has a custom version of some Qualcomm chip just made for their needs. Yeah,
I love it.
Or MediaTek. Yeah.
Listen, we should wrap up. Do you want to tell where folks can find you, MJ? GadgetMatch and all the channels and socials and websites.
It's easy. It's GadgetMatch all across social media, or you can follow me, Michael Josh, on Instagram. But the YouTube channel is where I'd love for you to go, youtube.com/GadgetMatch. And of course, GadgetMatch.com is like our publication.
Fantastic. And folks, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube, read GadgetMatch.com, and go to all the social and subscribe to everything. MJ and his team are phenomenal people and they do phenomenal work. And what I really like about your work is that it's more accessible. My audience is very techy and early adopter and savvy. But if you have somebody in your family that's more like a mainstream consumer, GadgetMatch will match them up with a gadget. And that is awesome. So folks, you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankrell. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character. Just drop all the vowels. That's my social media handle everywhere. I'm mostly on Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky these days. There is a website for the podcast, mobiletechpodcast.com, and there you can find like a blog post and listen to the show. But please subscribe. We're on all the major platforms: Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, etc., etc. And I'd appreciate you also rating and reviewing the show if your app lets you do that. There's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. I get some videos on there, interviews, hands-ons, some unboxings, that kind of stuff. It's about once a month right now. It's kind of a small thing, but I like to do it. Gives you some free video content. And then if you want to get a special treat, there's my Patreon, patreon.com/Tankrell. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. If you want to see us brandish the ASUS and the iPhone 16e that we talked about earlier on video, you can get that every week for $5 a month. And that basically gets it to you in advance. You get it a day early and you get to watch it and hear us. And and then you support me at the same time. So consider supporting me by joining the Patreon and watching the video version every week. Patreon.com/TNKGRL. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. So as you know, I'm constantly reviewing multiple phones, and while that's fun, it also means I'm constantly spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. That's where Mint Mobile comes in, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's podcast. If you also want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. As tech-savvy early adopters, you've probably heard of Mint Mobile before, but let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around and waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current device and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM free of charge. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting for $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/mobiletech. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And MJ, thanks so much for being my guest yet again. I really appreciate having you on the show again.
I had such a good time, and it's been a long time, so
I
I'm
know.
glad we finally have been able to make our schedules work.
Well, maybe it won't be as much of a long time for the next time because I will have you on again at some point. And folks, we will have a show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.